on a men's team at MDI for me has been about connecting with men and facing challenges that I wasn't able to face by myself.
Having men in my life provided me a place where I could sort out the priorities in my life and actually execute them. And whatever was standing in the way kind of dissipated once I had the men in the men's circle to push me in the right direction. Sometimes it was harsh, but it was always with love.
I get a chance to look at things and be shown things that I don't know about myself, that I'm not admitting to myself, and I'm not looking at, and I get such an opportunity to change the things I want to change.
Well, the great thing about being on a men's team is it creates a place for men to be totally safe, so they can bring and get what they need to make it through this thing we call life.
And the men.
All right, we're live. Good morning, Cory.
Good morning.
We always get to sit through that little strange silence. It's always hard for me. I've got to learn to be comfortable in the silence.
Yeah.
How are you? You know what? It's nice to finally see you face to face. We've been working together since, I don't know, September, October. So it's nice to be able to see you actually and have a little chat with you. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. So why don't you tell us who you are and where you're from and what you do, and I'm going to share on my personal page while you do that.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Cory Boehs. I own Kool LLC. I just had a call come in. I own Kool LLC in Enid, Oklahoma. I've been doing spray foam for 12 years, and I love the spray foam industry, and I'm glad to talk about any business stuff that you want to get into. The intention of this is more around the organization I'm a part of, MDI,
right?
And that is Mentor, Discover, Inspire.
Let's clarify that for our foamers in the crowd, because we just discovered something this morning.
Yeah, so it is not. This is not ISO. It's not MDI, the isocyanate side of things.
Right. Yes.
But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool that we've got that link there, even if it's just initials. But so MDI stands for Mentor, Discover, Inspire, and we are here to mentor men in what healthy masculinity looks like. There's a lot of. I'll speak of my take on masculinity, and what I thought it was, and what I'm learning what it actually is. So, we always hear the terms "man up" and just do your damn job and things like that. But masculinity is it's a way of being. We talk about context a lot. What kind of context we enter situations with. And masculinity, I mean, that's the solid, steady presence in the universe and the world around us. So we mentor men in how to create healthy masculinity, not the toxic, beating, fighting, and punching everything around us and things like that. Starting fights. What it looks like boots on the ground is I lead a team online. We meet every Tuesday night, and it's a circle of men. There's teams that meet physically around fires and things like that. We, due to our geographic locations, we've got, like on my team, we've got men in Canada, we've got men all across the U.S. that we meet every week.
So you guys do it by like Zoom call or something like that, right? Yeah. Okay.
We use Zoom, and then we use like Marco Polo for off meeting chit chat and just checking in with each other. We use Slack instead of email for team business and things like that. So
Right.
I've met a couple of the men on or one of the men on my team
Yep.
face to face, but otherwise it's amazing how close I've got with these men, this circle of men, and have never met them. So I mean,
Yeah.
and we understand it in the context of Spray Foam Worldwide.
Right.
We've all made great friends and support. We've got support groups and networks that we've never met face to face. So it's pretty cool.
How did you get involved? Did you start this group, or how did you get involved in the group? Like, how did it become a thing? Because the reason I'm so intrigued by this conversation is because I think there's going to be a lot of people, and it's probably going to be more women than men, maybe even, that are like, what the heck do men need a group for? Like, they're fine. There's going to be that conversation that is the reason why you guys have the group. But there's a lot of people that are not going to understand. Like, they will not get that. So how did it become a thing?
So the MDI comes out of, there's a Justin Sterling runs Sterling Men's Weekend and Women's Weekend, and it's an intensive weekend that just to get more out of life, more of what you want out of life.
Right.
So that and Sterling weekends are still a thing. I'm actually slated to go in June to one of those. MDI came out of that as I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but MDI is the using the tools that something like Sterling Weekend offers, or they've got their own weekend called Legacy Discovery Weekend, just digging into men and women, digging into what their life's purpose is, what it looks like to be supportable, things like that.
Right.
So that MDI started, and I'm off. I'm just winging it on my dates, but I think back in the 90s.
Oh, okay. It's been around for a while.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been around for a while. So the online teams are relatively new, like within the last 2 years. But I was introduced to it. My wife and I were down in Mexico and struck up a conversation with a couple that have done the Sterling Weekend, and then the wife she's part of a thing for women called Family of Women. So there is something for women also out there that is in the same context. And the man was leading a team for MDI, a virtual team.
Right.
So we got to talking, and as he was talking, I'm like, wow, that is something I need. I come from a conservative background, pacifist beliefs, things like that. And really what it did is I was very passive aggressive in the way I handled, I couldn't handle things with, I had this belief that conflict was bad and things like that.
Right.
There is a healthy way to have conflict in relationships, in work, and a lot of things like that. And I just felt like I needed whatever he was talking about. So I joined the team as a guest. We've got an onboarding process, and I went through that and just fell in love with what I was learning, and seeing men show up not in a judgmental or shame-based way, but just like supporting each other, calling each other on our bull crap, and just like holding space. It's a place for me to take my mask off. The confident, I've got this all figured out. That's like, as a salesperson in my company, and you can't show weakness and things like that. But this is a way for me to just take the mask off and let men into what's really going on in my life, and getting support around that, and supporting others in that. So
I think that is, you hit the nail on the head. It's that mask. You guys, I would say 95%. I'm probably low on that number, but that is exactly what happens. You guys are, there's this thing, like we said, we had that before when you and I talking about man up, and all of those terms that are just, like, I think they're ridiculous personally, because at the end of the day, everybody's a human being and everybody's got emotions and everybody's got feelings, and I don't care who you are, it's a scary space to be in your feelings, because it's uncomfortable. But you guys have been geared towards, like, you're not supposed to, like, that's not a thing for men or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's always confused me, because it's like, well, like, why? I mean, it's a weird, that is such a strange and old-fashioned way of thinking, I guess. So, because, as you know, in Spray Foam Worldwide, like, we've had conversations with other people that have come on and just talking about, like, different struggles and things that have, people have gone through, and the calls that they get behind the scenes are a lot, because guys are scared to come forward, and that needs to stop.
It does.
It's not a weakness to be,
Yeah.
You're struggling in that, like, it's not a weakness. So maybe talk a little bit about how that would be for somebody who is, like, they're thinking that maybe that they would like to, but what's the process for them to get to become a part of your group so they can join?
Absolutely. The simplest low-tech way is just to reach out to me via Messenger, or we can provide my phone number on here, whatever, however you want to handle that. I'm not the only leader that we've got. So right now we're a tribe that's a part of MDI, and then as we scale up, we'll become a division, or a region, and then a division. So right now we have three teams that meet online, or I can get men in touch with if there's something local for them,
right?
To gather, in a physical team. But yeah, we've got a meeting on Sunday mornings, fairly early in the morning, and then my team meets on Tuesdays, and another team meets on Wednesdays.
So what does it look like when you guys meet? Are you talking about can you kind of touch base on some of the topics you guys discuss? Just because I think what happens too, people get nervous with terminology. So when they hear, the tribe and the group, and it throws some people off. So if we can kind of just dispel some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not, there is no, it's not like you have to share. It's based on trust, and I've been there. It took me a while to trust the men around me to be able to open up. We totally get that. The way that a meeting goes, we get there. We have standards that we read off. We meet on time, and then get the meeting started. And there's a flow to it. We talk about our standards. We talk about confidentiality. Men are free to talk about the concepts that they learned there, and personally what they learned there. We agree to keep in the meeting what was discussed, the particulars, and there's no gossip about, oh my goodness, like, he's having really bad issues with his wife, and
right,
or I can't believe he did that in his business, or whatever. So we keep that. We take confidentiality very seriously. And then usually we'll have a ritual, just providing a space for men, or no, before we do a ritual, we'll do a 2-minute check-in. Men can talk about their week. We usually check in with a number on a scale of 1 to 10, where you're at, or where I'm at. I'm an 8. It's a great week, man. This, and this happened. I'm struggling with this, or it's all good, So, and then if a man needs what we call circle time, we'll give him time after that just to dig into whatever's going on, whether it's him sharing, man, I just knocked it out of the park in this area of my life, or, man, I'm really struggling. I could use some help here. And then we support in different ways, and then we'll move into a ritual, and that's usually just geared around given the opportunity for men to go deep and dig into their past or their present or or, there's just different things on that. But it's
Does
about,
it
go ahead.
encompasses both personal and can you talk about like business if you have like a issue with so it encompasses all aspects of life?
Yeah. Usually, if it's getting into, man, I need my marketing is not working, we'll say, hey, let's take this offline. We've got so we don't have, two things we don't talk about on the meetings are religion and politics. So we've got
very good.
a broad,
yeah,
a broad range of men from different backgrounds. And, in business, we've got men that are self-employed. We have corporate men. We have freelancers. We've got and again, you don't have to be at a certain economic status or anything like that, or a business owner
anybody
or anything
can
like
join.
that. Yeah, anybody can join. And it's amazing how on that, where we can find, I just had a call with a man this week that he's starting a business, and he just, on the call, on the meeting, he said, look, I'd like to talk to anyone that has input for me. So me and two other men volunteered. We're like, hey, give us a call. Let's spend 15 minutes talking about it. And what's interesting is, he's asking me, like, how did you start? And, word of mouth, like, how did that work for you? And it fires me up, even though he's, wanting something from me, it reveals things that I could be doing in my business. And, it's such a give and take. Like, it's not, we're all just men on a bus. Like, we're not anything special, but we just bring our truth, and it's great.
I think when you go back and forth, like I know for me, I did a video yesterday about my fear bugging me this whole week, and I did that, and then a friend of mine who lives not even anywhere close to me, she sent me a text, and she's like, you know what, I just watched that, and here, try this too. Here's 3 things you can try. And I'm like, man, that's like, thank you for that. It is that back and forth, because nobody has all the answers. And so, like you say, it gets you to revisit and kind of think about the things that you can do differently too, right?
Yeah.
And kind of look at that. But I think I'm glad you brought up about the religion and politics, because a lot of when these groups sometimes are formed, I think people there is that misunderstood thing that there is religion involved in it.
Yeah.
And it's quite often is not the case. It's just joining anything like this it's a nervous thing, because you have to you may know that you need that help or that support, but putting yourself into a group of people is it can be unnerving.
Yeah.
So, but it's, Keith Ibbotson said team building and mentorship.
Keith, you're dead on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the mentorship, like, Keith, thanks for mentioning that. The mentorship of, I volunteered to be a candidate to be the team captain. And they put me in based on that. And I was the least qualified of any of the men on the team to be the leader, but I wanted to be mentored in how to lead in a safe, it's practice, you might say. Like, that's an area that I know I'm going to get good feedback. And feedback is something that, here's how I view feedback. Carla, you can give me feedback on how you experience me, and you may be dead on, and you may be way off. Right. But I get to take that feedback and say, okay, is there something in here? No, there's not, and I can throw it over my shoulder.
Right.
And no, Wayne, it's not a God thing.
I knew that was going to come up from somebody. I knew it, because it's that nervous thing, like, oh, I don't want to be a part of that because it's a God thing. I'm glad you said that, Wayne. I'm so glad you said that. But I noticed too on your website, the first thing I saw was living. It's something to do with it didn't say not letting ego in front of you, but it says something about ego. living without ego or something like that. And I wanted to talk about that because I think when you're talking about feedback, that's where ego's jumping right in front of the train
Yeah.
and trying to run the show.
Yeah.
Because you get offended.
Yeah. Oh, and you know, that's offended or triggered or ego is my first knee-jerk response. And that's, you know, this is a place that I can take a deep breath and I go, you know what, I trust these men. You know, my view on life is to approach it with curiosity. I don't have all the answers. And I know, like, I live my life knowing that I've got some blind spots. Not that it makes me a terrible person or anything like that, but I may have blind spots that I need a tribe around me. And, you know, and when I say tribe, I mean Spray Foam Worldwide. I mean my friends here locally. My men on my MDI team, all these things. So, you know, I'm passionate about finding those blind spots and getting better.
Right.
And you know, like ego's a part of us. There's time when we need the ego. It's not a bad thing, but it's just, you know, ego is the biggest thing to learning. You know, on Spray Foam Worldwide, if I post a job picture and someone points out something I'm doing wrong, I can get on my soapbox and have an online fight about why I'm right, or I can go, okay, that's a different way to do that. Awesome.
Right.
And I can accept it or I can move on.
Yeah. And we see that all the time. Somebody jumps on and says something, I saw it yesterday. Somebody posted brand new. They came on and just like nailed them with a nasty, like it was about the second comment. And every time that happens, my heart sinks because I'm like, oh, like, dude, did you have to do that? Like, nobody knows if you're joking. Nobody knows if you're being a jerk. Nobody, you don't, and I'm pretty sure you're being a jerk. But sometimes people's humor is like that kind of sarcastic humor, and I mean, that's hiding a lot of things too, but I see that and it's like, oh my God, like, could we not just be like constructive in the criticism? Not criticism, but like constructive feedback is a better term. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. If you think of communication as a whole, our actual words, like our text that we speak or that we put online or in a text message or whatever, the text is only 7% of how we communicate. 93% of it is nonverbal. Like, you know, if you're just listening to this, you can't see my hands moving right now. You can't see my face, my expressions. So we need to factor that in as we communicate online. You know, sarcasm doesn't work very well. And hey, I'll raise my hand. I've posted stuff like that too. I've used sarcasm, and I'll probably do it again. It's learning.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a default for me too.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I private messaged that poster. Oh, Keith, I'm glad you did that. Keith gave him some words of encouragement. I'm glad you did that, Keith, because I really did. There was a few comments on that one. I was like, oh man, like, did we need to do that to that guy, that poor guy? But you said sometimes ego is a good thing. What do you mean by that? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Well, when is it a good thing?
Well, our ego is there to protect us. I mean, my belief is that, you know, that we've all had things in our past where we've got hurt, and the logical side of our brain goes, oh, don't, you know, you've got to protect yourselves from that because that hurt. You know, I touched a hot stove, or, you know, emotionally I got hurt when I did something. And so the ego is there to protect us in some ways. It's a part of us, but I feel like for me, it's important to have a place where I can safely have my ego challenged and dig into, you know, oh, why did I respond that way? And dig back to, like that, you know, I've got this deep-seated belief that I'm a fraud or that I don't belong. And, you know, so my response, my ego is is trying to make that come true, or because there have been times that I've been a fraud or that I didn't belong to something, but now's not that time.
Right.
So,
what would you say would be, in your experience, would be the thing that makes men, what's the thing that they are probably the most uncomfortable with or try to not deal with when it comes to emotions?
I was going to say feelings. Just
Feelings
emotions.
in general.
Yeah, just feelings. Feelings is the F word. But well, just, I mean, I can talk about what are some pain points for me. It'd be my relationship with my wife. I really don't want to talk about that when it's not going the best.
Right.
I don't want to let anyone into that. In business, when there's, when I'm having cash flow issues or things like, and then I'm just sitting here banging my head going, oh, like I suck at business. I'm terrible at this. We had a call back on a job. Like, that's just terrible. That, I'm not good at this or things like that. And to let men in on that and discover what's actually truth. Like what, and to me, it goes back to shame versus guilt. Shame is that I am a piece of crap, like foundationally, fundamentally, I'm a piece of crap, and it's a bodily response, and it doesn't, I love Brene Brown and her work around shame.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah.
We just watched her documentary on Netflix on Sunday. Rex picked it,
wow.
And I was like, oh, how come you're picking that? Like, I was really like, okay, yay. And
but,
it was great, yeah.
Yeah, but then shame is, guilt is, I did something really crappy. And what can I learn from it, and what can I put in place so that I don't act in that way? But fundamentally, I'm not broken or flawed. And that's, when I have that belief, like, I just keep in those behaviors. And guilt is a good thing. Guilt is productive when I have a callback. Well, yeah, I didn't check the job over, and I missed a 2x2 area. I didn't get it sprayed.
Yeah.
I can fix that. That doesn't mean that all my other work is terrible, So
yeah, I think that's a big one for a lot of people. Like, something goes wrong at work, like talking about business or work, it's all of a sudden you go down this like rabbit hole of like, oh my, like, I'm so stupid, like, how come I didn't do that? And it's like, just, I don't think anybody needs to beat me up more than my, like, because I've got it covered, right? And it's the thing where you have to catch that. And I mean, it takes work to catch those thoughts and try to stop them, and like, it's hard. It's so easy to just flow into that because it's go down that rabbit hole and feel like junk, and then it's like, why am I doing that to myself?
Yeah.
Like, it's because it's not true.
Yeah. And it's in that mindset, it's really hard to change behaviors to do better in the future.
Right.
So.
And like, when you're talking about relationships, like with your wife, that is, I can imagine. I mean, I think, and I don't know, I shouldn't be speaking for all women, but like a majority of women, I think it's a little bit easier for us because we tend to be more of a sharing, like, we do have, in most cases, our tribe of people. Like, I always call them our safe people. Like, who, just because you've got a wide group of friends does not mean you're gonna, like, you should be sharing every detail of your life with them.
Absolutely.
There's acquaintances, there's friends, and then there's your safe core people. And they're usually just a select few. But for men to share those things, I think that is a very scary space, because that isn't something that is a common. Guys don't sit around and, they might like make those offhanded, sarcastic comments, right? The digs and the whatevers. But I mean, I've been through that where underlying rage comes out in a joke.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I've lived
it's
a lot of
not
my life.
funny. Yeah.
I've lived a lot of my life with that.
Yeah.
So
It's making that, trying to think you're being funny, and it's like, that's not funny.
yeah. Yeah.
So you guys, do you guys in that work then, how do you guys become more comfortable with talking about is it just practice of meeting every week and talking about it, or do you guys have techniques that you use to kind of get into a better space about that?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question. We do. We have 4 levels of support, what we call, and we, we give men, the first level is just to give men the opportunity to just vent and puke out what he's got. We can also, are you open to questions, clarifying questions and to help us understand it better? And then the next level would be giving the man, are you open to men who've been in a similar situation and hearing their experience on how they work through it? And then the last level would be all out. You give us the permission to challenge you on your bullcrap and, call you where you're have some really nasty behaviors around what you're talking about, and or give direct feedback, but we let the man determine what level of support he wants, because there's things, there's times in my life that I just want to say, you know what, yeah, had a terrible day, work didn't go right. Dr. Phil has a book called Self Matters that changed my life. I'll have to look into that. I've followed some of Dr. Phil's work. Great man, Mr. Hawk. Thank you for that. So that's the levels of support. Usually we take commitment seriously. A man will commit to, writing up a business plan or something like that, and we'll put a due date on that, and we will inspect him if he's going to follow up on that.
Accountability.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. So.
Keith's saying he reads Deepak Chopra. I never know if I'm saying his name right, his books.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He's pretty deep too. I follow him, but sometimes I'm like, I get lost because I don't follow him enough I've not understand all his practices. But yeah, there's a lot of, he is deep thinking. Holy smokes. So accountability is huge. So I think that's so important that you guys do that, because that's where, yeah, okay, go do that, and then nobody checks up, and it falls off the rails.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Bill said, I appreciate your approach and what you're saying, Cory. Sounds like you're volunteering your time to empower others. You're a leader, brother. Dave says, hi, guys. Sorry I won't be able to watch it all. Got a job going to look at. That's okay, Dave. You can watch it later.
Yeah. Watch it later, Dave.
Yeah,
Good
that's
luck.
right.
Good luck on the job.
Yeah. I guess the other thing too I would like to ask you is, who are some of the people that you follow online that are of those same things that you guys are teaching and learning about? Because I know people ask that all the time, and it varies for everybody, because there's some people that you can connect with and it makes sense. Other times there's, that person is somebody who's wildly popular and people think he's awesome or she's awesome, and it's like, ooh, I don't like that message. I just can't get around the whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And in this, I think it's important to frame that with, what I'm talking about is a way. It's not the way. Not every single man on Spray Foam Worldwide is crazy if they don't join a men's team. Like, this is a way that I have found to get, to learn how to be a better leader and things like that. So, and the same with the people that I follow. Brene Brown, we touched on that. Yeah. She's someone that I love. I dig all her stuff. There's David Deida, Deida, writes a book, The Way of the Superior Man.
Okay.
That's a pretty deep dive into the concepts that we talk about, or that we follow, like on a men's team. There's another one, John Wineland.
Okay.
It's about masculinity and femininity. He's got a podcast and does workshops and stuff like that. I listen to that. Who else would there be? That's all that's coming up right now.
Do you have any that you like for business that you listen to?
I love Seth Godin.
Yes.
On business and marketing.
Yep.
I actually, in 2014, I did his Alt MBA course. It's a 6-week intensive dive into that. Business wise, I don't know. I've been lately. I've been on a kick of self-development and things around masculinity and things like that, and I'm seeing it show up in my life or in my business life. In the past, Michael Stone, he writes the Contractor Handbook, I believe. He's really good, like boots on the ground, sales tactics, things like that. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then also one of his books that's not as popular but really helped me was Sales Dogs. It's called Sales Dogs, and it's the premise that we're all salespeople,
right?
But there's different kinds of, we're all sales dogs, but there's different kinds of sales techniques, and just who we are, our personalities, we're probably going to fall in one of those camps more than another.
Right.
And just because we do doesn't mean that someone else's approach is wrong or that we're wrong or things like that.
Right.
So.
How is there any kind of does it matter how old you are to join your group?
No, not at all. On my team, we've got men from 20s to 70s.
Ah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Because as you can see sometimes how people post on social media, they are definitely, there is something there, and they could use this very thing, and it's like, and they're not very old. And I kind of think, you know what, if you can get that in your 20s, holy smokes, like you are ahead of the game. And I think it's important also for people to understand, you attend conferences as well. Yes. You guys did the Rise.
Yeah,
was it the
Rise Business?
It was the business one with Rachel and Dave Hollis. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. I blanked when you asked for who I follow. Rachel and Dave Hollis, I follow them. I'm actually in Dave's coaching right now. His career coaching.
You?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I saw he was doing that.
I'm doing more than I think I am. But people like that, Brandon Burchard, 6 Habits of Effective Leaders. That's one of his books. I'm not sure if I got that title quite right, but yeah, Trent Shelton, Tom Ballou, guys like that are great. Their podcasts are great. I and I may get flack for this from the foamers, but when I'm spraying, I've got my AirPods in and I'm consuming content of one kind or another, whether it's music or a lot of the times it's podcasts. So
I have a friend who he's a contractor as well, but he's extremely, like, he had very severe learning disabilities, very bad dyslexia. So for him, reading is very challenging, obviously. And he does exactly the same thing as you. And he's like, he told me, I forget how many books he had listened to, but it was like an astronomical amount of books. I'm like, you've done that many books? He's like, yeah, I listen to it all day. Like when I'm on the job site, I've got it plugged in and I'm just listening and listening. He also belongs to a men's group. And I mean, this was a few years ago, but he physically went to it. It was before kind of technology, but they did a little bit of, they touched on business, like personal life. And then they did a little bit of like, they would do a little bit of martial arts, or they would do some kind of like a physical activity as well in that one meeting. I think they met once every 2 weeks or whatever it was. But yeah, it was, and I said to him, man, like, that is amazing. I think that should be a thing that should be everywhere. Guys should have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he would always say to Rex, you should come. And Rex is like, yeah, I'm good. That's why I'm saying too, we need to dispel some of that, because like Wayne, and there's that like nervous, like, ooh, I don't know about that. Rex would be more open to it now because he's like, it's like a few years later, but it was very funny because I would tease him all the time. You should go to the men's group. I don't need to go. It's like, well, you probably do.
Well, yeah, and there's, I'll totally raise my hand on this one. My wife and I have done like choices seminars. It's an experiential learning, experiential intensive weekend kind of thing, and just some of the things. It's such a weird dance of when she suggests something to me, like, I mean, my ego and my arms crossed, closed body position. I'm like, no, you're trying to fix me again, aren't you?
Yeah.
And, but just to calm down and go, okay,
let's listen.
Yeah, let's listen. But yeah. So I get the responses, and the teacher appears when the student is ready.
Right.
We're all on journeys. This is where I'm at in my journey right now. If we had another coffee with Carla in a year, I may be talking about some totally different things that I've discovered.
Right.
So it's and that's one of the things that we practice active listening on our meetings. We aren't listening to respond, and there's a time and a place to call men out, absolutely, but there's a time to listen. And like, that's through all of my personal development work. When I am really heard, I can get there's such power in telling my stories. And when I'm heard, when I feel heard, I can lay a lot of that stuff down. So
yes, that is
so. Bill,
so
good to hear, Bill.
There you go. See, you're not
things.
alone. I know Danny Walker actually, that's probably a year ago, gave me a list of audiobooks that he was listening to. He just messaged me out of the blue. I think we were talking about books at that time, and he listed a bunch too, and they were all really good books. So, but when you say that, it's funny that you're talking about that listening, because I've been talking to people in this last week in the realm of financial people versus contractors trying to start a business, and trying to bridge that gap of you're not, neither of you are hearing each other, because there's that, the bankers this way and the contractors this way, and there's not a mix. And you know what, we need to make that come together so you both can succeed in business. Like, it's not just a banker, but like in anything, you need to come to the same level. Nobody needs, there's that, people have maybe a bit of an intimidation factor, or vice versa. They can be intimidated, or the other person thinks that person's not going to understand anyways. They're not smart enough to get it. So, there's that. So it's getting people on the same level. Yeah. I talked to a finance guy. He worked for a bank up here in Canada. And I said to him, how do you think somebody receives you when you're sitting, they're coming off their job site and they're like filthy dirty and they're super successful. You're looking at them like, and I said, and you're sitting there in your three-piece suit. Like, how do you think that conversation's going to go?
Right.
And he looked at me and he was like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. I'm like, nobody's hearing. And when you hear and you listen, you're going to get a lot more, you're going to, it's going to help, like, everybody.
Yep.
And it's the active listening that is the challenge a lot of the times.
It is.
Because like you said, when your wife is coming at you and talking to you about things and you get that closed arm like thing, but when you listen, it's not the case of maybe she's trying to fix you. It's just that growing and learning.
Yeah, that response is a lot more about what my brain is telling me at that point rather than what she's actually saying.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And so how would you say this has helped you in your relationship with your wife and your kids even? Like your kids, now how many kids, I know your daughter, you have a daughter who I
I have a
think is
daughter.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
But how many kids do you have?
I've got 3 kids.
You've got
My
3.
daughter's 14, my
Mhm.
son is 12, and then my youngest son is 8. And they're actually, my sons are bombing around our yard. We've got 10 acres, and they're bombing around our yard on their dirt bikes right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm watching them out the window here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, how it's helped is we talk a lot about. I mean, I mentioned before about context, and we usually actually use a technology called CPR,
Mm.
not emergency
Right.
resuscitation.
Yeah.
It kind of is sometimes, can be.
Mhm. Yeah.
But so CPR stands for context, purpose, and results.
Mhm.
And so context is the way of being of how I approach, like with my kids, being intentional, being a dad, like understanding that time is a finite resource,
Mhm.
and they're not going to be here forever, and like showing up fully as a dad.
Right.
So, and then purpose is, so I could write a CPR about, I could have wrote a CPR about this call, and the context is how I want to be. The
Mhm.
purpose is, what's the purpose for this call? And you know, let me just, well, yeah. And then results are, what results do I want? And the interesting thing is, or the way I do it, I start with the results, and I state them as, let's just talk about this call.
Mhm.
Men were introduced to MDI, and I state that as if it's already happened. I would have wrote this a day ago or right before the call or whatever.
Right.
Cory showed up in his power, just different things like that. And then I write my purpose. The purpose of this call is to talk with Carla over coffee, so that men understand what MDI is about, and so that they can change their relationships and be mentored. And with that, they become better leaders, something like that. And then, my context would be, it's usually an I am statement. So I am fully present and engaged, something like that. But it's changed, like, just that has changed just for me, that context, a way of being, a way, you could create a CPR for cleaning toilets, and one context would be, oh, this sucks, I don't want to do this. Or a context could be the cleanest bathroom ever, something like that. So, Bill, I will not be in California next week.
Oh, too bad.
I know, I hate to miss it. But I mean, I will be flying out to pick up the rig that I'm going to win. I mean, that's, so.
You got to make those sacrifices, right? So you might see them. Yeah, it's funny because it's always that thing when you're using the toilet as an example. Like, it is interesting when you start changing that around.
Yeah.
Look at it as not a negative, but as a positive. It is remarkable how your whole world, for the most part, will change. And I think it can be 100%, but like, there are just days I just am not into being like, I just want to be mad.
Yeah.
I can't do that today. Like, I'm just, so then the whole day is terrible.
Yeah.
Because that's just how I'm going to be.
Yeah, I know.
It's and you see that all the time. My life sucks, and this is this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, because you're feeding that. You're feeding that.
And, the context for me pulling out on a Monday morning and going and spraying a house. It's going to be, got to go spray again. And I hate spraying open cell in a 2x4 wall, or, it's so difficult. Or I can go, hey, my context can be, I am going to provide the best job that I know how, so that these people can enjoy their safe, quiet environment for the rest of their lives in this building. So, can make it a
Monday,
home. So
yeah, Monday is the one that makes me laugh every time, because it's like I get a little, I go a little Clemens on this. I get a little conspiracy going and going like, that's a media thing, and that's like the marketplace, like you're buying into all that crap about Monday being terrible. But it is like, people make money on that. They sell the stuff, right?
Well,
like that's just feeding it. They're just feeding it. And it's like, you don't have, Monday's not your enemy. Monday's just another day.
it is.
And, you know, it's that whole thing. People get caught up in how much they hate their job and how much they, you know, and that's a big one, is people hating what they do.
Well, and you know, absolutely. And you know, don't hear me say that I can out optimistic a bad situation. Like if I'm in a career or a job or whatever that is not feeding me, then I can use these tools to figure out how to get into something that feeds my soul. So
yeah,
that's important to me. and I also base that on, I mean, I was 18 when I realized, you know what, I'm going to spend the majority of the rest of my life working. I might as well make it enjoyable and fun.
There you go. That's the key. Like, that really is. And I mean, people might think that's hokey, but it really is. It's a determination and it's a decision. It's you decide. You always get the choice.
Absolutely. And you know, I at that point I was framing houses for my dad. He has a general contracting business. And I was framing day in, day out, and you know, I found a lot of fulfillment in it. But there came a time, it's like, you know what, I'm ready for something different, and that's when I started my spray foam company. But you know, so it's not like, and you know, spray foam, like, will I be here the rest of my life? I don't know. There, you know, I'm looking for bigger and better and all that. But my context right now is like, I'm going to do the best job that I can and grow this and be passionate about it. So I don't know, holding those intention that there is a time to move on if it's not getting me more of what I want. So
well, and I think not feeling bad about that either. Like, you may outgrow, like, people outgrow things, or they, you know, it's time to move on and do something different. And I think as well, I guess I can ask you this question too. What do you guys talk a lot about, as this is the big buzz thing, right? And it has been for a little while, but people need to like find their passion. And I'd like your thoughts about that. Like, you need to be doing what you're passionate about, and it's this thing about passion, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, I'm totally going to make something up here.
Make something up. Go for it. Because I haven't thought on this.
I can be passionate about building Lego models. I can just feed my soul. How am I going to monetize that? Right.
Exactly.
I mean, passion is important, but how much of it is, you know, how much in passion is it context of, you know, getting real with myself about what. I mean, I would say that I hold passion and long-term goals in tension of, I've got to find a way, build them, purpose, absolutely.
Yes.
Purpose is huge.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, I have a higher purpose than my career. And so my career, you know, spray foam is my jam right now, but if I find a way to monetize and live more fully in my purpose every day, boy, I'm all in for it.
Right.
So
yeah.
So on the subject of passion, like in the context of being on a men's team, we would talk about purpose more than passion.
Right.
But you know, there's definitely links between those.
There is, and it's the context that I think it doesn't serve people well, is that consistent thing about, you know, it for me, it flows into the work 24/7, hustle, and passion. Those three are causing people to have nervous breakdowns, because You cannot work 24/7. There is a time and place for hustle. And yes, there has to be passion in your life with different things you do. You also need to rest.
Yeah.
Because your brain does not work if you're
Yeah.
hustling 24/7.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing, like, am I passionate about my work 24/7? No, I'm not. Like, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
just scraping walls
Mm-hmm.
is not, it's pretty hard to be passionate about that. But it's, if I look at my purpose of standing in the gap between heat and cold, that's a part of that's a part of my purpose right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do things to support my higher purpose rather than trying to find passion in scraping studs or something like that.
So when you say higher purpose, how can you explain that a little bit more so people understand what that means? Because I think people it's getting caught up in the terminology, and it's people kind of make a thing around it that's bigger than it is, maybe, or more complicated. So
Ooh,
and it's hard to explain
deep.
it, I know.
That's deep. So I've done it. So Mike, I have a contract and purpose for my life. My contract is I'm a confident man.
Yeah.
And my purpose is daring to stand in the gap. So when I am fully alive, fully human, I am standing in the gap. It could be between that banker and that
Mm-hmm.
tradesman, just like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's those moments in life that really make me feel like I matter. I'm doing what I should. And as I so my purpose can tie into so many things. I mean, it is my passion also, but it helps me to do the things. We know this. Spray Foam Worldwide knows this. There's a lot of our lives in our work that is not that much fun.
Right.
That's the way we can approach it. So a purpose, and a purpose is just a purpose. In my definition, would include something bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I want to create wealth for my family and for me, like I want all the toys. I want 13 motorcycles and a boat and
Right.
and all these things.
Yeah.
But it's but if that's not for me, that's not a high enough purpose to do what I'm doing. I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place for everyone around me.
Ties into legacy a little bit.
Boom, legacy, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's especially I think too, when people are starting out, when they want to build a business, and we see that all the time in Worldwide too, is, they're starting out, they're going to build this build. Are you doing it for the reason of exactly what you're saying is you want the 13 motorbikes and the boat and the or are you doing it for legacy? There's two different ways to do business, and you can do one or the other. I don't know that I guess you can do both, because if your business is successful, but I think if you're focused more on legacy, you're going to be able to have the 13 bikes and the boat.
Yeah,
and this.
Absolutely. And that takes me back to Tom Ballou spoke at the Rise Business Conference, and he's the entrepreneur that was the force behind the Quest energy bars.
Right. Yeah.
And he talked about, money is really good at fixing money things.
Mm-hmm.
But he said if your purpose, if your passion is about money, it's not going to be enough to carry you through. He talked about, he's a billionaire by now, but he talked about being under a machine, a mixer at 2:00 in the morning, and wondering why he's there. But then he thinks, his mom was one of his purposes. He wanted to create a product that she could make more healthy life choices with.
Yeah.
And that's purpose of that. It's going to take purpose like that to carry me through, the day when the rig goes down, my proportion goes down 5 minutes till 5 o'clock, and I've got 10 square feet left to do. Like, it gives me the willpower to power through a time like that and to figure out a way to get it done.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly. I guess kind of to wrap it up, I'll just say how long have you been in the group, and kind of how long have you been doing this for?
I joined last April. I joined as a guest last April and became a member in May, probably May or June. I don't know the exact dates, but
can you see a difference in how you are obviously with your wife and with your kids? Would be the first that I would ask about.
Absolutely. And just, instead of ego flaring up all the time and taking things so personally, what happened, it's given me a context of, taking a deep breath and just being okay in the uncomfortableness of conflict. I keep talking about conflict in my marriage. I want to say I'm married to my best friend.
Right. We all have conflict, it's just there.
Yeah, it is. But this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say to Rex sometimes, when we're having those deeply passionate disagreements,
yeah,
they exist all the time.
They do.
You got two very strong-willed people. It just happens. It just is. But it's how you go through those deeply passionate disagreements.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And
it is.
It's very easy to fall into just being nasty and mean and saying stuff that's not nice.
Well, and that's unproductive. I mean, because when
100%,
in a relationship, in a business relationship or a marriage relationship, when both people are triggered and in their lizard brain, I call it the lizard brain, you're not actually hearing what the other person's saying. You're just taking everything and making it. I take everything and make it about myself.
Yeah.
So.
And I think everybody does that, right? It's just it's really making that kind of. I do that. I've learned to do that over the time we've been together too, and it's like to have it when you're in the middle of an engaged, heated battle, and to stop and go, I need to breathe. That was a technique came from my friend that's in the men's group. He's like, when somebody is challenging you, coming at you, and you want to fight back, he said, stop and take a very deep breath in and exhale. And it can probably be received by the person who's mad at you that you're fighting with as are you what are you doing? Right. But it helps calm. It does help calm. Well, it helps me calm down anyways. But so yeah, I don't think you mentioned I hope nobody took away that you guys were always in conflict, because I mean I think that's part of just being with another person, but can't be 24/7 happiness all the time.
Right.
But
right.
How would you say it's changed with your kids? That would be the one that I would ask too.
Well, it's opened my eyes to legacy and to, like I said before, about intentionality. Just showing up as a dad. Listening to their stories and being present instead of scrolling through Facebook when I'm around them and don't hear me say that I do that perfectly, but I'm on a journey. So
yeah, and that's so important. It is, I think back to when my kids were little, even when we didn't have Facebook and we didn't have all that stuff, but there's lots of other things sitting in front of the TV, mindless, watching some junk that you've seen 17 times and not hearing them and not being present in what they were doing 100%. Yeah. It's
Shauna, welcome.
Yeah. Hey, Shauna.
Good you made it.
Yeah. We'll put the links in the comments for the website and the Facebook page, as well as wherever else you are. Are you on, I know you're on Instagram too, but your group does it have a page on Instagram as well?
I'm not, so
Just
I am not.
Probably Facebook.
They may have it on Instagram.
It might be on their website.
I don't live on Instagram very much.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Facebook guy. So,
Okay.
yeah, and like I said before, anyone reach out to me, private message me, call me, text me.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about MDI.
Yeah.
I'll answer any questions. My group meets, or my team meets on Tuesdays. There's a group on Wednesday that meets, and then there's one on Sundays. So.
And again, it's done virtually. You can be anywhere.
Yeah, the options that I mentioned are virtual. There's like on the East Coast, the West Coast, Calgary. There are physical teams that meet around a fire in a backyard or something like that. So,
right.
And I can get men in touch with those groups also.
Right. And how
Those
long?
teams.
I didn't touch on this. How long have you owned your business? Kool LLC.
Kool LLC. I have owned it for 12 years. It'll be 13 years in August. So.
Okay. And in the construction industry for?
I went to work with my dad out of 8th grade. So
right.
I'm 38. So
yeah. So wow.
20 plus years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I know some people probably wonder how long you've been in the business and that type of thing too. So I think we can probably have many conversations about this.
Hey, Dwight. Good to see you.
I'm
know
glad.
Dwight well.
I'm glad that you came on and that we got to talk about this because I think it's super important. I think there's a lot of guys out there who maybe didn't know that this kind of thing existed will be very happy that this has been brought forward, because I think there's more guys out there that would love to join something like this.
Yeah. And men, don't hesitate to reach out, and ladies too. Like if there's a man that you are interested, or that you need more information, do that. And for women, there's the Family of Women option.
Oh,
I can
okay.
get you in touch. I can get you in touch.
Yeah,
with
if you
someone
would, that
with
would
them.
be great, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Is there anything you want to say to wrap it up?
I thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'm thrilled that you came on, and I want you to come back for sure. We'll
Absolutely.
revisit in a few months and see where you're at.
Absolutely. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
All right.
So.
And we'll go back and answer if there's questions in the comments and stuff. I was kind of keeping an eye, but thank you guys all for joining. And again, I'll see some of you next week for a couple of days anyways, but next Saturday, who do we have? Oh, Amy Messick is going to join us next Saturday. So we will see you guys all next week. Thanks again, Cory. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody have a great Saturday. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Being on a men's team at MDI for me has been about connecting with men and facing challenges that I wasn't able to face by myself.
Having men in my life provided me a place where I could sort out the priorities in my life and actually execute them. And whatever was standing in the way kind of dissipated once I had the men in the men's circle to push me in the right direction. Sometimes it was harsh, but it was always with love.
I get a chance to look at things and be shown things that I don't know about myself, that I'm not admitting to myself, and I'm not looking at, and I get such an opportunity to change the things I want to change.
Well, the great thing about being on a men's team is it creates a place for men to be totally safe, so they can bring and get what they need to make it through this thing we call life.
You know, and the men pump you up. The men show you what you need to work on, and they leave you strong. They don't leave you beat down. They leave you strong.
Life on a men's team right now is outrageous because they're giving me perspective of things that I've never gotten before. So I'm able to look at things a different way and apply them to my life in a different way, and the results are changing for the better.
It's like, you know, if I had a bunch of brothers, because, you know, I have one brother, but now I've got like 10 of them. And I get to do all kinds of stuff with them. And I get to have, I get to kind of have a higher purpose in my life because we do things together about making our community better.
I'm a man that looks for those moments where it's right to rip open my heart and show my men what's really going on.
So life on a men's team for me is just life, and it's improved every part of my life, my business, my relationships, and of course I have hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of men in my life.
It's like having a bunch of close brothers that give me the what I need in my life, and it might not be what I want sometimes, but it's a masculine support to get me where I want to go.
What's life like on a men's team? It's good, the bad, and the ugly. If you don't want to step into the truth, don't show up.
It's like one of those things that you don't want to go to, but when you leave after you've gone, you're like, fuck yeah!
After a win, I love kicking ass. I love celebrating accomplishment and success, and I did that tonight, and I had my men to thank for it. They put in hard work, and I led them, and we delegated, and it was awesome. So kick ass, I love it.
It's a charmed life, you know. It's exhilarating. It's safe. It's uncomfortable. You know, it's just an awesome experience. I don't think you can get that kind of experience anywhere else.
When it comes to my wife and I's relationship, I go to men in successful marriages. When it comes to being a better performer, I go to men that are successful businessmen. When it comes to being a better father, I go to men that have put their children through college and have men standing in the circle with me. About the most I can say about being on a men's team without having you there. So come join us.